In Brevard County, a courtroom decision has brought new attention to the ongoing review of the Anna Kepner cruise case. What was meant to be a family trip aboard the Carnival Horizon ended in a sudden loss that continues to shape legal actions and public concern. As questions remain, the latest hearing reveals how the court assessed safety, testimony, and the events surrounding Anna's final days at sea. Tonight, we look closely at why a Florida judge declined an emergency request involving a young child, and how statements from family members influenced that ruling. We also explore the broader federal review that continues to examine Anna's time on the ship. This episode follows each confirmed detail, focusing on clarity and respect as the case moves forward. At the Moore Justice Center in Vera, the courtroom opened to a request that carried significant emotional weight. Timothy Hudson stood before the judge, asking for emergency custody of his 9-year-old daughter. The request followed the sudden loss of 18-year-old Anna Kepner during a family trip aboard the Carnival Horizon. Hudson argued that recent events created a situation requiring immediate court intervention.
We talked it over with our traveler
Circuit
agent.
Judge Michelle Studstill listened carefully to the statements presented. The issue before the court was not the broader circumstances surrounding Anna's passing, but the question of whether the younger child faced immediate risk. Emergency custody requires a strict standard, and the judge emphasized that each detail must be supported clearly before the court can take urgent action. Hudson's filing expressed concern that his daughter might be exposed to unstable conditions.
Did she allow you
He
to drink
referenced
alcohol?
materials indicating that Anna's 16-year-old stepbrother was mentioned in earlier court, documents connected to the ongoing review of the incident. To Hudson, this mention represented a possible source of concern, prompting him to seek rapid removal of his daughter from her mother's household. During the hearing, however, Judge Studstill focused on the factual evidence rather than the implications of earlier filings. The judge explained that emergency removal depends on present circumstances, not on uncertainty or speculation. The court needed to determine whether the child was currently exposed to any situation that required immediate separation from her mother's care. A critical point emerged when testimony confirmed that the 16-year-old boy referenced in previous documents was no longer living in the home. Instead, he was staying with a third party. This detail shifted the discussion, as the court needed to assess whether the boy's absence reduced any immediate concern. It became a central factor in shaping the judge's final decision. Additionally, testimony clarified that the boy was undergoing a psychiatric evaluation. This process was part of the broader review surrounding the events on the cruise ship. His mother, Chantal Kepner, stated firmly that he would not be returning to the family residence at this time. The court acknowledged these statements as relevant to the overall assessment of the child's current environment. Hudson argued that the possibility of the boy's return still created uncertainty. However, Judge Studstill emphasized that emergency custody requires proof of immediate and present danger, not hypothetical scenarios. Without evidence indicating the 9-year-old was currently exposed to harm, the court could not meet the legal threshold necessary for an emergency ruling. Another key moment occurred when testimony revealed that the 9-year-old girl had requested to see her older brother during Thanksgiving. This detail suggested that she did not express fear or discomfort regarding him. While the court acknowledged that emotions within the family may be complex, this particular statement weighed against the claim that she felt unsafe in her mother's home. The judge reviewed the family dynamic leading up to the cruise. Chantal Kepner explained how the children were arranged during the trip. Anna stayed in a cabin across the hall from her 2 stepbrothers. These details helped provide context, but did not directly support the argument for urgent intervention. The court maintained focus on the child's present living conditions rather than past arrangements. Throughout the hearing, Judge Studstill stressed the importance of separating ongoing investigations from custody decisions. Because federal investigators had not released conclusions and no public identification of any suspect was made, The court could not rely on incomplete information. The judge reminded both parties that speculation cannot form the basis of a legal emergency. The FBI continues its review of the incident aboard the Carnival Horizon. Still, this federal process operates independently of family court. Since no official findings had been issued, the court had no evidence suggesting immediate risk. The judge noted that while the broader situation remained unresolved, emergency custody requires concrete proof, not concern alone. Hudson's attorney highlighted the references in earlier documents that mentioned the possibility of further review involving the teenage boy. However, these documents did not confirm any conclusions. Judge Studstill clarified that such references do not meet the legal standard for urgent removal unless they directly demonstrate current danger to the child involved. The court also reviewed the history between Hudson and Kepner. Their custody dispute has extended over several years, and both parties have sought various modifications since their separation. Judge Studstill reminded them that long-standing disagreements cannot transform into emergency claims unless supported by clearly defined evidence showing immediate risk. As testimony continued, the atmosphere remained focused and procedural. The court sought to separate emotional reactions from factual assessments. While the loss of Anna cast a shadow over the hearing, the judge emphasized that the tragedy, although deeply significant, could not serve as legal justification for emergency custody without specific proof tied to the younger child's current circumstances. Hudson reiterated concerns about uncertain outcomes from ongoing reviews. But the judge again pointed out that emergency custody is reserved for situations where the child is exposed to danger at the present moment. With the teenage boy no longer in the home, the court determined that the alleged risk lacked sufficient grounding. Kepner, on the stand, offered a detailed explanation of her household structure following the cruise. She stated that she prioritized creating a stable environment for her children as the family navigated the aftermath of Anna's passing. Her testimony aimed to assure the court that the younger children were not exposed to conditions that would justify urgent intervention. Judge Studstill reviewed all testimony once more before issuing a ruling. The court concluded that the legal criteria for emergency custody were not met. There was no evidence of immediate danger, no indication of harmful conditions within the home, and no factual basis to suggest urgent removal was necessary. Therefore, the request was denied. The decision did not end the broader custody dispute. Hudson and Kepner will continue navigating the standard legal process to resolve their ongoing disagreements. The ruling simply affirmed that an emergency measure was not warranted based on the information presented at this stage. Outside the courtroom, questions regarding the federal review remain unanswered. The Miami-Dade medical examiner had not yet released an official cause or manner of Anna's passing. Early reports referenced mechanical asphyxiation, but authorities have not confirmed this. Without official findings, public understanding of the case remains limited to verified procedural updates. Part 1 closes with a clear picture of the legal landscape. The court focused strictly on present conditions, not unresolved aspects of the ongoing federal review. Judge Studstill's ruling underscored the difference between concern and immediate risk. As later parts unfold, the case continues to develop on both legal and investigative fronts. As the hearing moved into its next phase, the court turned its attention to the sequence of events leading up to the emergency filing. This included reviewing communication between the parents, the initial reactions to Anna's passing, and how each side interpreted the developing situation. The judge emphasized the need to distinguish emotional responses from factual elements relevant to child safety. Hudson described how he learned about the references to the teenage boy in earlier documents.
Say she and
For
her
him,
stepbrother were
the information
close.
raised immediate
planned to
concern
join the
about the
military.
environment surrounding his younger
purpose.
daughter.
She wanted
He stressed
to do
that the
things.
uncertainty caused by the ongoing review created a sense of urgency. The court acknowledged his perspective, but focused on current, verifiable conditions. Kepner's legal team explained that the initial references in court materials did not confirm any outcome. They argued that the documents merely reflected preliminary information rather than verified findings. The judge reiterated that emergency custody requires present and concrete evidence, not concerns based on incomplete or ongoing processes. Testimony continued with details about the household routine following the cruise. Kepner explained how the family attempted to return to a sense of normalcy while cooperating with federal investigators. She clarified that the younger children maintained a stable schedule, attending school and engaging in their usual daily activities. The court reviewed communication records between Hudson and Kepner in the days following the cruise. These exchanges demonstrated their differing interpretations of potential risks. Hudson viewed the uncertainty as requiring swift action, while Kepner maintained that the household remained stable and that no immediate threat existed. A particularly important moment occurred when the court examined how the absence of official findings affected the case. Because federal investigators had not released conclusions or identified any parties, the judge noted that the court could not assume danger based solely on unresolved questions. The legal process required evidence tied directly to the younger child's present situation. Further testimony clarified the timeline of the teenage boy's relocation to a third-party residence. This move occurred shortly after the cruise, and according to Kepner, it remained in effect indefinitely. The court found this detail significant because it separated the younger child from the source of concern identified in Hudson's filing. Hudson acknowledged that he was aware of the boy's relocation, but argued that the arrangement might not be permanent. However, the judge reminded the court that emergency orders cannot be based on hypothetical scenarios. The legal threshold demands a demonstrable and immediate concern, which the evidence did not support at the time of the hearing. Kepner offered additional details about the support system surrounding the children. She explained that extended family members, neighbors, and school staff had provided ongoing structure during a difficult period. These statements contributed to the judge's understanding of the child's daily environment and the stability it provided. The court then turned to the testimony regarding the younger daughter's emotional state. Kepner explained that the child had expressed confusion and sadness about the events, but had not shown signs of distress related to her living situation. The judge noted that emotional impact, while important, must be distinguished from immediate safety concerns. Hudson raised questions about whether the child had been interviewed by professionals. Kepner responded that she had been in contact with school counselors and licensed specialists to ensure the child's well-being. These efforts, documented through communication logs, reassured the court that the child had access to appropriate support. Attention then shifted to the broader context of the family's long-standing custody dispute. The judge acknowledged the complex history between Hudson and Kepner, noting that prolonged disagreements can influence how each party interprets unfolding events. Nevertheless, legal decisions must rely on present evidence rather than accumulated tension. Throughout the hearing, the judge highlighted the need for clear separation between the federal review and the custody request. Although Anna's passing prompted significant concern, the lack of official conclusions meant the court could not draw connections to the younger child's safety. This principle guided the judge's approach at each step. Additional testimony addressed the communication between Kepner and federal investigators. She confirmed that she had cooperated fully and that she remained informed about procedural updates. However, she noted that investigators had not shared any findings indicating danger to the children in her care. Hudson emphasized his belief that acting early was necessary to prevent potential problems. He argued that waiting for complete findings might expose the child to unforeseen issues. While the court understood his reasoning, the judge reiterated that emergency actions require more than anticipatory concerns. The court then reviewed the sequence of statements involving the teenage boy. According to earlier materials, Investigators had informed Kepner that his possible involvement was still being reviewed. However, the lack of official conclusions meant that the court could not take these preliminary references as evidence of current risk. Kepner explained that she sought professional evaluation for her son immediately after learning he might be referenced in the review. She emphasized that this decision was voluntary and made to ensure transparency and safety. The judge recognized this step as evidence of responsible parental action. The testimony also explained why the boy's relocation was arranged so quickly. Kepner stated that the arrangement allowed investigators the time and space they needed while preserving stability for the younger children. The judge acknowledged that this decision helped reduce immediate tensions within the household. With these details established, the court shifted back to the central question. Was the 9-year-old child currently exposed to any form of immediate danger? Based on the testimony, documentation, and timeline presented, the judge reaffirmed that no evidence met the standard for emergency custody. Part 2 concludes with the court preparing to issue its written explanation of the ruling. The judge emphasized that future hearings could revisit the matter if new, verifiable information emerged. For now, the emergency request was denied, and the case continued through standard legal processes as the federal review remained ongoing. As Part 3 began, the court revisited the statements made earlier regarding the cruise itself. While the purpose of the hearing was not to determine responsibility for Anna's passing, the judge allowed limited discussion to clarify the family dynamics leading up to the emergency filing. Each detail helped shape the broader context without influencing the custody decision directly. Kepner described the layout of the cabins on the Carnival Horizon. Anna shared a cabin across the hall from her 2 stepbrothers. According to her testimony, the arrangements matched the family's usual travel patterns and did not raise concerns during the trip. The judge acknowledged the information, but reminded the court that it did not affect the current custody evaluation. Hudson explained that learning about the cabin arrangements added to his concern. He felt that the proximity between the children during the cruise created unresolved questions. However, the court reaffirmed that emergency custody must focus on the present situation rather than uncertainties tied to the cruise environment. The discussion then shifted to how each parent learned about the early indications from investigators. Kepner stated that she was notified that aspects of the case involving her teenage son were still under review. These notifications did not include conclusions or findings. The judge stressed that preliminary information cannot be treated as confirmed evidence in custody decisions. Hudson testified that these early notifications alarmed him, prompting him to act swiftly. He argued that the combination of uncertainty and the sensitive nature of the incident convinced him that urgent protective measures were necessary. The judge noted his concerns, but explained that the court requires a direct link to present conditions affecting child safety. The court also reviewed how quickly the federal review unfolded after the cruise. Investigators gathered statements, examined the environment aboard the ship, and conducted interviews with family members. However, without official conclusions, the judge maintained that speculation could not form the basis of an emergency ruling. Kepner addressed the emotional impact the situation had on all her children. She emphasized that the household was working to process the loss through open communication and professional guidance. The court acknowledged this effort, noting that the availability of emotional support services contributed to a stable environment. Hudson questioned whether the emotional impact on the younger daughter could constitute grounds for immediate intervention. The judge responded that emotional distress alone, unless linked to a direct safety concern, does not meet the legal threshold for emergency custody. The court distinguished between long-term support needs and immediate protective action. Attention then turned to the availability of external support networks. Kepner highlighted the involvement of school counselors, mental health professionals, and family friends who helped the children adjust. The judge noted that these services provided important safeguards and contributed to the decision not to issue an emergency order. The discussion returned to the teenage boy's status. The court reconfirmed that he remained outside the home, living with a third party. This arrangement significantly influenced the judge's decision, as it directly removed the source of concern named in Hudson's filing. The judge found no evidence suggesting the arrangement would change in the near future. Hudson asked whether the court would reconsider the matter if new information emerged from the federal review. Judge Studstill confirmed that future proceedings could be scheduled if verified updates created a meaningful change in circumstances. The current ruling did not prevent either parent from seeking additional hearings upon receiving new, substantiated information. Kepner reaffirmed her commitment to keeping the court informed, explaining that she notified investigators immediately when the boy relocated. She stated that transparency remained her priority as the family worked through both the emotional aftermath and the legal processes surrounding Anna's passing. The judge also considered the long-standing nature of the custody dispute. Both parents expressed a desire to protect their children, but their differing perspectives contributed to ongoing conflict. Judge Studstill encouraged both sides to focus on cooperative communication as the standard legal procedures continued. A final review of the testimony showed no direct evidence that the younger child faced immediate danger. The judge clarified once more that emergency orders are exceptional measures intended for situations involving clear and present risks. The information provided throughout the hearing did not meet those requirements. With all testimony concluded, the court summarized the findings. The teenage boy was no longer in the home. No official findings from federal investigators indicated immediate risk. The younger child had expressed interest in maintaining family connections. Support systems were in place to address emotional needs. These points guided the decision. Judge Studstill then issued the ruling. The emergency custody request was denied. The judge acknowledged the seriousness of the broader situation, but emphasized that legal standards must be consistently applied. Without evidence demonstrating present danger, the court could not authorize urgent removal. After announcing the decision, the judge outlined the next steps. The case would proceed through routine family court channels, allowing both parents to present further information in future hearings. The ruling applied only to the emergency request and did not determine the outcome of the broader custody case. Hudson expressed disappointment, but respected the court's explanation. He reiterated that his concerns were rooted in the uncertainty surrounding the incident aboard the cruise ship. The judge encouraged him to continue participating in the standard legal process, where more detailed evidence could be evaluated over time. Kepner stated that she hoped the decision would allow the children to regain stability while the federal review continued. She reaffirmed her willingness to cooperate with investigators and to update the court if circumstances changed. Her closing statements focused on maintaining a secure and consistent environment for her children. Part 3 concludes with the court formally ending the hearing. Although the emergency request was denied, the situation remains subject to ongoing legal and investigative developments. The ruling highlights the distinction between concern and legal urgency, setting the stage for continued proceedings as the family navigates the aftermath of the events aboard the Carnival Horizon. As the hearing closed, the courtroom returned to silence, leaving behind a series of careful statements and a ruling shaped entirely by verified details. The decision did not resolve the wider questions surrounding the events aboard the cruise ship, nor did it ease the emotional weight carried by the families involved. Instead, it marked a pause, a moment where the legal process
talked it over
reaffirmed
with
its
our trial
reliance on
agent, and
evidence
that was what was
rather
suggested.
than uncertainty, allowing the case to continue unfolding step by step. Beyond the courthouse walls, the wider review remains active. Federal investigators continue examining Anna's final days, while the family navigates shifting responsibilities, unanswered questions, and the slow pace of official updates. The ruling from this hearing becomes only one chapter in a much larger timeline. A timeline still shaped by ongoing inquiries, developing information, and the quiet persistence of those seeking clarity. For now, the lives of everyone connected to this case move forward in measured ways. The younger child remains in a stable environment, the court maintains watch over future developments, and the broader investigation continues its meticulous work. With so many elements still in motion, each update adds a new piece to a story that is far from complete, reminding us how complex these situations can become when legal, emotional, and procedural paths intersect. If you want to follow this case with careful attention and verified updates, stay with Crime Wisp. We examine each development with clarity, patience, and respect for everyone involved. Subscribe, tap the bell, and join us as we continue to trace this unfolding story, not with speculation, but with steady reporting that guides you through every confirmed turn in the investigation and the legal process.